The life of any young man brings about much confusion and critical decision making. This level of confusion is multiplied tremendously when the ones who are supposed to be your support system are not doing their job. Confused is the perfect way to describe a young Adolf Hitler because throughout his early years he went through many trials and tribulations in pursuit of happiness, when ultimately he would not be able to find his niche in society. A transition of cities at first brought an elevated level of struggle, which led Hitler to learn and develop new principles as a man in society. The new environment, mixed with a new way of thinking, led Hitler to distinguish the different types of people he would encounter, allowing for his way of thinking to be exemplified. Here, Adolf Hitler also found a sense of belonging which he had not been able to experience, which pushed him to want to be in control of it all. The early life of this brutal dictator or influential leader is what shaped his reign over many. Austria-Hungary from its roots was a multinational empire created by the Compromise of 1867. Before the Compromise, the land was filled and controlled by Austrian Germans. This all took a turn after the Seven Weeks' War, which resulted in these Germans having to split the land with their counterpart, the Hungarians. Now at a level playing field, the Hungarians had their own government while also holding all responsibility for any offenses in their territory. Interestingly enough, each side of the dual monarchy was looked over by the Emperor of Austria and the King of Hungary, Francis Joseph I. The land was very diverse. It included 11 different ethnic groups, predominantly made up of Germans and Hungarians. The land was also home to many groups originating of Slavic background, as in the Ukrainians, who held 8%, and the Romanians, who held 6% of the population. This raised many red flags in the fight for nationalism because different people had different political and cultural differences. In this time, Austria-Hungary was regarded as a great power. This was due to its 50 million inhabitants in the land. However, when it came to the economic status, Austria-Hungary was on the low end when compared to the other European powers like Britain, France, and Germany. Production level and income were down due to high variations of economic development in the region.
The Hitler family lived on a small farm in Linz, Austria. Their house consisted of Adolf, little brother Edmund, little sister Dalla, older half-brother Alois Jr., older half-sister Angela, and two parents. Alois Jr. was the oldest, so he received the harsh words and occasional beatings from their father. This caused Alois Jr. to run away from home. Around the same time that he ran away from home, the family got up and moved to Lambeck, Austria. This was the first of many moves for the family after Adolf's father retired on a pension from the Austrian civil service. Their father worked as an Austrian imperial customs agent. Times were tough and very tight for the family. When they moved to Lambeck, Hitler started attending a Catholic Benedictine monastery. He did well in school and took part in the choir and considered becoming a priest for a couple years. In 1898, the family moved again to Leonding, Austria. They settled at a small house located next to a cemetery. It was around this time he found he had talent as a drawer. His grade school years were coming to an end, and he had to choose whether he wanted to go to classical or technical secondary school. Hitler wanted to go to classical school, but his father wanted him to follow in his footsteps of being a civil servant, so he sent Adolf to technical school in September of 1900. Vienna, during the start of the 20th century, still remained a center of high culture and modernism. With nearly 2 million inhabitants in an area of 105 miles, Vienna began to spread to the left bank of the Danube River. This capital city had become a breeding ground for ideas that would later shape the modern world. Hitler came to Vienna with little money, but with hopes of getting into the Academy of Fine Arts of Vienna. He came over with his friend August Kubisek, and they both shared a room at Stumpergasse 29, which was a street near West Bahnhof train station. Kubisek was accepted into the School of Fine Arts, but Hitler was rejected twice. After being rejected twice, he became very interested in notions of a greater German nationalism, and he was influenced by Vienna's mayor Karl Lueger. Lueger introduced universal male suffrage in 1907 and influenced the Christian Social Party's platform. Hitler witnessed Lueger at his apex and loved his anti-Semitism ways.
Hitler crossed over to Germany in 1914 and was declared fit to join the German army. Here he found that joining would give his life new direction and so gave total effort towards World War I. Hitler was known as a brave soldier and received several wounds in his time on the battlefield. This would not go unnoticed because for his work and bravery he was awarded many medals. Along those accolades, Hitler really liked his promotion to corporal of his sector. Throughout the campgrounds, Hitler's anti-Semitic ways of life was very noticeable. Being at a top rank in the military, his ways spread like a virus to everyone around him. Around mid-1919, Hitler was recruited to work for the Information Office by his captain, Karl Mayer. He oversaw the collecting of information on political movements potentially hostile while being in charge of the political education of the troops. Being known as a great communicator, Captain Mayer allowed for Hitler to travel and give speeches on his political views, ultimately spreading the anti-Semitic ways to a bigger audience of German armed forces. In these speeches, he would rudely point out Jews, accusing them as a driving force behind communist revolution. Hitler said the Jews were the tuberculosis of the people and had many calls to action for the removal of the Jews as a whole. Regarding his work, Hitler attended a German Labor Party meeting. He disagreed with many points of the speech given about the future in which the party saw fit. Hitler felt very strong and sought out to make change. He soon joined the party, being discharged from the army on March 31st, 1920. As in his military days, Hitler's ability to persuade people with his words was looked highly upon by the now newly named National Socialist German Workers' Party. Now he moved up so high, he made his way of being the leader of the whole organization. Now newly named the Nazi Party, they won the election of 1932. And interestingly enough, in January of 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor. The Nazi state, or Third Reich, used many tactics to control what was to come. They first enacted that Germans enjoy no civil rights. Soon after, the government issued a decree that motions could be passed without parliamentary interference. Another way they went about it was propaganda focusing on women in childbirth. Much of the focus was having pure Aryan women birth as many children as possible, while having the women who did not meet the standards do the opposite. This soon resulted in the removal of the racially inferior people as a whole.
Hitler's early life shaped his reign as a dictator. From his rough childhood times to his time in Vienna, he always had an interest in war. From being in Vienna at the apex of Lueger's time in office, giving him the idea of anti-Semitism, Adolf Hitler would soon move through the ranks and eventually control the whole nation. From his time in World War I to leading Germany and creating the Third Reich and the Holocaust, Hitler's significance will never fade. He's been talked about for many years and will continue to be talked about for many years to come.